Right now, somewhere in your mouth, there's a tooth. If it started rotting tonight, you would call a dentist. 3,000 years ago, nobody could. And a rotting tooth is not a small problem. It is an open infection, 2 inches from your brain. Untreated, it can genuinely kill you. So what did people actually do? The answer involves a bow drill, a barber with pliers, and teeth stolen from a battlefield. First, you need to understand why ancient teeth were destroyed. It was not sugar. Sugar came much later. It was something far more boring: sand. Ancient bread was ground between stones. Tiny fragments of grit ended up in every loaf. Every meal was quietly sandpapering the enamel off people's teeth. Egyptian skulls show teeth worn flat, sometimes down to the nerve. Not decay, erosion. Their food was slowly grinding their mouths into powder. Once the enamel is gone, bacteria reach the soft center. That becomes an abscess, a sealed pocket of infection, pressing on the nerve with nowhere to go. This is the pain people describe as the worst of their lives. And for most of human history, there was no way to switch it off. So they needed an explanation. And the explanation they landed on was a worm. A tiny worm living inside the tooth, chewing its way through. This is written on a Babylonian clay tablet thousands of years old. The worm asks the gods for a home. It is given the teeth. And here's the part that stuns me. That explanation was not seriously challenged until the 1700s. The tooth worm outlived entire empires. It also made a strange kind of sense. Open a badly decayed tooth and the pulp inside looks stringy and pale. It looks like something living. So how do you get a worm out? You smoke it out. Patients were told to inhale fumes from burning henbane seeds over hot coals. Henbane is a powerful narcotic. So the treatment did something. Not to a worm. It drugged the patient enough to stop caring about the pain. And sometimes the seeds burst in the heat, leaving small white husks in the ashes, which people took as proof. There they are, the worms. Now, some places did far better than this. The oldest known dentistry is around 9,000 years old, from a site in modern Pakistan. Archaeologists found human molars with neat holes drilled into them. The tool was a flint tip spun by a bow. The same drill used on beads. Think about that for a second. 9,000 years ago, someone sat still while a neighbor drilled into their living tooth, with no anesthetic at all. The Etruscans went further. By around 700 BC, they were building dental bridges out of gold bands, holding replacement teeth in place. These were not crude. They were fitted, functional, and sometimes genuinely beautiful. Ancient Italy had better dentistry than most of medieval Europe would. Egypt had specialists too. A man named Hesiod, buried around 4,600 years ago, carried a title that translates roughly as Chief of the Teeth. But specialists were for the wealthy. For everyone else, the treatment was simpler and older. You pulled it out. Or someone pulled it out for you. In medieval Europe, that someone was usually a barber.
Of course, hold still.
Barbers had sharp tools and steady hands, so they cut hair, drew blood, and yanked teeth. That red and white pole outside barber shops is a leftover. It is not decoration. It represents blood and the bandages wrapped around the arm. Some tooth pullers worked market squares, on a stage, in front of a crowd. And they often hired a musician to play loudly during the procedure. That was not entertainment. That was so the crowd could not hear the screaming. A quiet extraction was very bad for business. There was no anesthetic. Alcohol, opium, and being held down by 3 strong men. That was the entire pain management strategy for centuries, and this is where it gets dark. Once you lost teeth, you needed replacements. And the best replacement for a human tooth is another human tooth. So a market appeared. Teeth were bought from the desperate poor and taken from the dead. Grave robbers sold them. Executioners sold them. Then, in 1815, the Battle of Waterloo left thousands of young, healthy dead men lying on a field in Belgium. Scavengers moved in and pulled the teeth out. They were shipped to England by the barrel. People wore them for decades. Waterloo teeth.
Oh,
Meanwhile,
look at that
sugar arrived in
cone.
Europe and made
It's
everything
magnificent,
worse.
so elegant.
It was
And
expensive,
look at my
so
teeth.
black, rotten
How
teeth
dark
became a
and
visible
beautiful.
sign that you could afford it. Elizabeth I
Behold
reportedly
my
had
regal
teeth blackened
smile.
by sugar.
Your teeth are so
And some
dark.
accounts claim people
We must
blacken their
have that
teeth
look.
deliberately to look wealthy.
Perfect, just like hers.
Real relief only
Just
arrives in the
breathe. This will help.
1840s with ether and nitrous oxide. Before that, every extraction in history was performed on a fully conscious person.
This entire line
That
is
is
filled with
roughly
the same tiny figures.
200,000 years of
And way over
humans,
here,
and
this tiny sliver
180
is different.
years of painless
That's how
dentistry.
small it is.
We are the strange ones, not them. So the next time you dread the dentist, remember that the chair, the needle, and the silence are the newest things in the room. See you next time.